May I take it that the Assembly wishes to adopt draft resolution A/70/L1? It is so decided.
On September 25, 2015, member states of the United Nations adopted Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and with it, 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is intended as a plan of action for people, planet, and prosperity that seeks to strengthen universal peace in larger freedom.
The adoption of the 2030 Agenda, including 17 inspiring Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. Our aim is clear, our mission is possible, and our destination is in our sight. An end to extreme poverty by 2030, a life for peace and dignity for all. What counts now is translating promises on paper into change on the ground. We owe this and much more to the vulnerable, the oppressed, the displaced, and forgotten people in our world. We owe this to a world where inequality is growing, trust is fading, and impatience with leadership can be seen and felt far and wide. We owe this to succeeding generations, in the memorable words of the Charter. In this year, in which we mark the 70th anniversary of the United Nations, we must heed to the call of the Charter and hear the voices of we the peoples. This is how we can overcome the grim realities of the present and seize the remarkable opportunities of our era.
The SDGs have moved beyond the focus on social and economic priorities reflected in the Millennium Development Goals to a broad agenda that is universal in its coverage. In particular, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development affirms explicitly that there can be no sustainable development without peace, and no peace without sustainable development. It draws together the strands of peace, the rule of law, human rights, development and equality into a comprehensive framework.
We have the tools to tackle poverty, inequality, climate change, and environmental pressures. They were defined in the great multilateral agreements reached in 2015, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Addis Ababa Agenda for Action, and the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. The Sustainable Development Goals are our blueprint for fair and sustainable pathway to development that leaves no one behind. The powerful message is that no matter where you are born, no matter how marginalized your community may be, the world is determined to carry everyone along on our journey to a better and more equitable future.
Reducing conflict, crime, violence, discrimination, and ensuring inclusion and good governance are key elements of people's well-being and essential for securing sustainable development.
The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is the overarching focus of every event of this high-level week. We started this journey together in 2015, and we know our destination: an end to extreme poverty and hunger, equality for women and girls, and empowered young people, a low-carbon, climate-smart economy with decent jobs, inclusive growth, and shared prosperity, peaceful and just societies, human rights for all, and respect for the rule of law, opportunity for all on a healthy planet. In short, we have set our sights on a fair globalization. The good news is that the 2030 Agenda is coming to life. Governments, North and South, have begun integrating the goals into national plans and strategies. The private sector is coming to understand that green business is good business. And city, businesses, the international financial sector, civil society, young people and more are stepping up and taking action.
The United Nations system also has a key role in the new global agenda. This is based on its culture and shared responsibilities, collective action, and benchmarking for progress. Through its work at global, regional, and national levels, UNODC will provide support to member states to reach their targets under the various SDGs. The main goals include UNODC's work on drugs and health, supporting a balanced public health-oriented approach.
Please may you be seated.
In this hall are officials of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, members of civil society organizations in Nigeria, government officials, traditional rulers, and students. The agenda is simply to brainstorm on the effects of corruption on national security.
The greatest PVE we can do is to lead by example.
We are talking of corruption. We are talking of problem of security. So any effort be put in place by any person, organization to address these two menaces, I think is a very positive development. Corruption has become systemic and endemic in this country. It is a menace that we must uproot if we must move forward as a country. We cannot talk of the cherished national goals and aspirations, the desired national growth and development in the atmosphere of corruption. So if we must develop as a country, if we must be at par with other committee of nations, I think collectively we must fight corruption. On the other hand, the problem of insecurity is another menace that we must all fight collectively. You know, when there is insecurity anywhere, you cannot talk of development. So what normally happens is loss of lives, property, and you cannot even talk of development, rapid development. Then on the other side of it, even foreign investors will be scared away. So where are we? Do we close our eyes and begin to accommodate these two problems which is confronting us at the moment? Yes, government is doing much to see that these two problems are exterminated from the country. But then, this requires collective responsibility.
In 2012, Nigeria was estimated to have lost over $400 billion to corruption since independence, and in 2018, the country ranked 144th in the 175 countries listed in Transparency International's Corruption Index. Available evidence demonstrates that corruption in Nigeria serves two main purposes. One, to extract rents from the state, which includes forms of corruption such as embezzlement, bribery, nepotism, and cronyism, among others. And two, to preserve power, which includes electoral corruption, political patronage, and judicial corruption. Goal number 16 of the Sustainable Development captures the commitment of nations to fight corruption, increase transparency, tackle illicit financial flows, and improve access to information. There is a broad consensus that without meaningful action to reduce corruption, progress towards other SDGs is likely to be extremely limited.
A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Addressing the gathering here, the representative of the Attorney General of the Federation decries the effect of corruption on national development.
Corruption and insecurity is a huge problem in Nigeria and many other African states that has so far defied solution, generates deep and persistent inequities, and is responsible for much of the economic underperformance in the continent. As you are aware, the theme of corruption and insecurity are two of the three governance pillars of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, with improvement in the economy as the third one. Therefore, this is really important for government, and therefore we will want to see at the end of this program the outcome and the policy recommendations. While significant progress has been made on tackling corruption and improving security, a lot of work still remains to be done in order to build sustainable approaches and enduring institutions. There is no doubt that high-level corruption can fuel insecurity and lead to a weak economy and widespread inequality. It is against this background that President Muhammadu Buhari in 2015 commenced the process of taking various steps to tackle corruption and insecurity in Nigeria, as well as reaching out to other African countries.
She also highlights government's efforts to tackle corruption, noting that recovered stolen funds will be used to fund the 2020 budget.
Since 2015, through the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, the federal government has initiated several laws and policies to strengthen the fight against corruption, both within the public and private sector. Without repeating the humongous figures of recoveries by the Federal Ministry of Justice, the ICPC, the EFCC, and other agencies, permit me to state here that no government has taken steps like President Buhari's administration to recover funds of illicit origin. These funds have also been paid into the Federation accounts and are being used to fund the national budget. As most of us are aware, for the first time in 2017, the President authorized that there should be a revenue item in the Appropriation Act, by this I mean the national budget, that refers to the item called recovered assets as a revenue item in all budget process. What that means is that as the monies are recovered, they are paid into the central bank, and then they become part of the Federation Consolidated Revenue Funds, which are then used to fund projects and developmental programs in Nigeria.
Traditional rulers are seen as the closest to their local communities. Therefore, the need to enlist them to tackle corruption and insecurity starting from their domain.
Overall, I think we are all realizing that the threats to security are multiplying. For example, if you look at the insurgency, now it's troubled with phenomena of organized crime. It's in general coupled and coupled with crime rates that are rising. You have piracy issues, you have a lot of smuggling issues. So it's getting more complicated, basically, for the security agencies to fight on so many fronts.
Every corruption issues are security-related issues. So there is a correlation between corruption and insecurity. There are corrupt cases where, not just financial corrupt cases. Today, one of the trending issues is cybercrime. Cybercrime is an issue of insecurity. So there is a serious correlation, and that is why we identified these two and brought them together so that experts could be able to dish out the required solution to them. The government of the day is doing its best in fighting corruption. And remember, corruption always fights back because we have a corrupt society. Not just those in government, even at our community level, even at any level, corruption, the level of corruption is extremely high. It has eaten to the fabrics of our society. So we need to address it, and that is what we are doing.
Any policy document from this conference?
Of course, there will be a policy document at the end of the conference, and by tomorrow, we're going to, the communique for the conference will be the extract, and which will be sent to all relevant authorities so that it can use as a policy document for it.
Let me get a peg from you.
Participants at this conference believe that there is a strong relationship between drug abuse, corruption, and the rising cases of insecurity in Nigeria. A recent report by the United Nations shows that over 14 million people in Nigeria abuse drugs. Majority of that number are young people between ages 25 and 39. SDG number 9 places emphasis on building resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Nigeria's northeast region faces poor infrastructure as a result of years of insurgency. Public utilities like schools and hospitals are in bad shape, while the poor state of roads is affecting military operations in the region. That's according to the Chief of Army Staff.
One of these major roads which straddles, from the northern part of Borno up through Sambisa and to the border with Cameroon, through part of Adamawa, is the Damboa, Chibok and Askira roads, which link up to that other road that links into the Mandara Mountains, as well as comes back into Goza, Maiduguri, Bama, Maiduguri axis. That particular road, the Damboa, Chibok, Askira, is critical and strategic to our ongoing counterinsurgency operations. In order of priority, I think that one is very important. Then secondly, is the Maiduguri, Monguno, up to Malamfatori. This is another strategic road which, to a certain extent, the road stops at Monguno, but it doesn't go beyond Monguno up to Malamfatori. If that road is fixed, it will help us greatly, and it will even bring back the economic activities and return of the individuals, persons that have been displaced, and indeed our refugees that are across in the Niger Republic especially, and even Cameroon.
Public affairs analyst Fidel Onyeneke calls for a holistic fight against corruption before development can be made possible.
And if we want to fight corruption, it must be totally holistic, and nobody should be treated as if he is above the law. Everybody must be treated equal. In other words, once you commit an offense or once there's an allegation against you that involves corruption, you must be made to face the music. And if you are found wanting, you face it. You face the appropriate sanctions. But a situation where, because of your affiliation to either the ruling party or the government in power or some highly placed persons, you are treated with levity when the issue affects you, is not acceptable. So that has given doubt to most Nigerians, saying that, yes, we are fighting corruption, but we are not satisfied with the way the corruption is being fought. And the government must go back to the drawing board, look into all these things, and make sure that this fight is very, very holistic. Because if the government succeeds, it is for the betterment of the whole Nigeria, and not just those in government. But if the government fails in this fight, it will also be inimical to the development of the country, and it will be an affront and, of course, failure on the part of the ruling government. This serious fight against corruption became a mantra, seriously, under the Buhari administration. That is not to say that we never had agencies and commissions like ICPC, EFCC in the past. They were not really set up by this government. But the truth is that they have not really been working as expected. You see, Nigerian, we found ourselves in an unfortunate situation where this country, where we are coming from, appears to be coming out from a system that was embodied, a system that was beclouded by various forms of corruption. So those who benefited from the system, those who believe that the only way they can make it could be through one type of corrupt practice or the other, they are now against the fact that corruption is being fought. So what it simply means is that those corrupt people, including those who are even in the system fighting the same corruption, knows that it will not augur well for them. And in order to save themselves, and considering what they benefited in the past, they're now saying, look, instead of us to go in, instead of us to fight this corruption and rope ourselves in, it is better we relax. And that is exactly what we are facing today. And that is the bane of the Nigerian society.
Onyeneke believes the system is also yet to align to the fight against corruption, therefore may be unable to monitor the progress.
Treasury single account is a wonderful thing. In countries that used it, it is working perfectly well. But it will not work well in Nigeria because there are interested parties, including highly placed government officials who had benefited from the system, the old system. So they want to frustrate this system because they believe that the only way they can make their money is through embezzlement of public funds, mismanagement of public funds. They see it as an avenue. Rather than investing in small-scale industries, trying to find out other sources of making money. Most Nigerians depend wholly on government. And not that they depend on government for genuine income. Rather, ways of defrauding the government, defrauding the people, at the expense of the masses. So that's the thing. People feel that they are better under a corrupt and corruption atmosphere, so to say, than when things are gotten right. But government should not relent. In spite of the fact that corruption is fighting back, if the government is genuine, if our leaders are genuine, and they mean well, they can fight corruption. In any case, these are our leaders. What do they really want? You have had the opportunity of serving the people, and God has blessed you. You are elected into an elevated position where you will render service. Why must you now die again because of the money you want? That is the height of insatiability. Serve the people, render the service, depend on your genuine income. Of course, you will not die. Unfortunately, we've not created a good system for the younger ones. Because that is why even when you go to the secondary schools now, primary schools, not even to talk of tertiary institutions, everything is making it quick, get rich quick. That is the intent. Because these are all people born with the blood of corruption, and they are inside corruption. They feel that money is all in life.
In a recent raid, the Nigerian Navy recovered over 300 jerrycans of siphoned fuel, believed to be prepared for illegal movement out of the country. The government had closed the country's land borders, stating that it is to grow the nation's local economy and reduce illegal importation.
It has normally been our duty to conduct such operations from time to time, but with the recent stance on government, especially with the closure of the borders, and we know that a lot of these miscreants cut away these illegally siphoned products across the borders and even within. We now had to step up our game higher, and we, based on intel that we've gotten, we now deploy our air assets, that's the Navy helicopters and the drones, for us to get and confirm our intel, get the real coordinates of where the suspected locations are. I think each and every one of us, we need to be more patriotic, because these are economic ills which affect each and every individual in the country. And I think it's high time we understood the implication of that. We don't encourage it, we don't support it. There have been sufficient fuel supplies in the country for the past 3 years, which is unprecedented. And now for these miscreants coming to do this, the colossal amount of money that is costing the government is huge. And these guys take this product possibly out of the country to the neighboring countries. And so we have to find a way to ensure that we deal with these miscreants, and we'll find a way of hunting and hounding them until we take them down. That will continue.
At the Peace Forum in Paris, President Muhammadu Buhari insists the fight against corruption must be won, convincing world leaders that the country has strengthened its laws and institutions to fight corruption, fast-track recovery of stolen assets, and punish offenders.
What is the major problem in fighting corruption? Virtually, it has been institutionalized. Corruption has been institutionalized in Nigeria, and fighting it is not easy. But we are doing our best, and we are getting the support of the young men.